Hello and welcome to another episode of Mr. Irrelevant's Fantasy Football Show. I'm Grant.
And I'm Nick.
And today we're going to be ranking every single starting quarterback in the NFL for Week 9.
All right, so starting off with our top 5 quarterbacks for the week, we have Russell Wilson at the Bills, Josh Allen versus the Seahawks, Justin Herbert versus the Raiders, Ben Roethlisberger at the Cowboys, and finally Patrick Mahomes versus the Panthers.
Yeah, a lot of interesting matchups there. The main takeaway I have, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen. Josh Allen hasn't been that great. Neither is Seahawks defense.
Right.
It's like a perfect recipe for a shootout, I think. Both teams should have trouble running it. What do you think about that?
I think that this is my takeaway on that the running backs for Seattle, you don't have
ones that survived.
Yeah, you don't have many left over right now.
DJ Dallas 2.8
wasn't
yards
good.
per carry.
Was not good.
A goal line vulture, he would have been normally called, but there was no one to vulture from because no one survived the week before.
And again, as we're seeing up until week 9, the Seahawks are definitely going with a let Russ cook approach. So lots of passes on first and second down, which leaves them with very few third downs. And you repeat the cycle. So I think that Russell Wilson is going to have a great game. Josh Allen,
a little more
Seahawks, it's a questionable one, but as you alluded to, Grant, I don't trust the Seahawks secondary.
Yeah.
So I think he could have a great game,
It's
and it
really
could be a shootout.
Just a recipe. It's really just a situation where I think Josh Allen's going to have to do a lot because Devin Singletary and Zach Moss have been kind of meh. I don't if they don't really come in and do something amazing, I think you're going to have a situation where it's going to have to be Josh Allen playing keep up with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Even though this is in Buffalo, so I would keep an eye on the weather. That's the only thing that I think could really change the dynamic of this game. Yeah. It's projected to be a very high-scoring game. I believe the over-under 55.
Yeah.
It's that's an interesting one to pay attention to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, Raiders.
Honestly, I don't watch a lot of Raiders games, but I've seen.
But you don't? They're must-watch.
Maybe they are. Maybe they will be in the second half of the season for me. But
and they're actually surprisingly watchable games.
I'm sure they are.
That may
I'm
sound
sure they
like
are.
Total sarcasm. It's actually some good football over there.
They have an interesting makeup over there. But I have seen a fair amount of Justin Herbert, and while the record doesn't indicate that he's doing well, I mean, they just blew a heartbreaker to Denver this past week, as an example. But that kid can sling it. And so I'm excited to see what he can do against this Raiders secondary.
He's going to be – basically it's going to be Justin Herbert aggressively fighting back against whatever demon is haunting the Chargers.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you've seen it. Everyone's seen it. The Chargers have a habit of exploding on national television. I could see it happening this week, but Justin Herbert's going to try and stop it, and that's why I like him at 3.
Yeah, I still can't believe that happened against Denver last week. But,
demons to
you
exercise.
see it a lot. We've seen it so many times, time and time again. And I think you're right.
5, the Chargers.
I think it's going to be Justin Herbert just playing his tail off, trying to keep the Chargers ahead in this game and not blow that big lead.
And there is only one question. It's will the Raiders be able to do what they did to Baker Mayfield? They shut down the kitchen. They evicted his business.
I'm telling you right now, I'm taking Justin Herbert over Baker Mayfield. Yeah. I mean, so I don't know who wouldn't, but
yeah, I think he's just a different caliber of player, and I think
completely.
And the Browns are kind of showing that they don't. It's a situation where they don't really want to. It's all like Kirk Cousins. They don't want to throw it that much.
Exactly.
To run first. I definitely think Herbert's going to carry the Chargers to make it competitive.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on there.
And then we have 2 probable blowouts at 4 and 5.
Probable, and
I wouldn't even say it's probable for the Cowboys. That is a blowout.
It's going to be a blowout, and the reason that we're putting Mahomes back in is because I'm gonna own up. We blew it last week. We put Mahomes too low. We just weren't sure how long he'd stay in the game, and turns out they kept him in the whole game.
Yeah, they just want to sit him in there.
And he absolutely threw a party. So
what did the Jets do? I guess the Jets did fire a friend of Andy Reid. The former coach, I believe, was one of Reid's assistants.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's now the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers, I believe.
Oh, yeah. His name is escaping me.
Yeah. Oh,
But
Todd Bowles?
Todd Bowles, yeah.
Todd Bowles.
That's who it is.
Yeah, they
It's Todd
fired
Bowles.
Todd Bowles, so then Reid got back at them by torturing them for an entire football game. But
Could have been it. It could have been it.
I think maybe the interesting thing is Andy Dalton breaking, he's been contaminated.
So he's on COVID, which now means it's going to be DiNucci or there's also rumors that they're bringing in Cooper Rush to start the game.
I would go with Cooper Rush if I was them personally because, you know what you have in DiNucci. It's like someone cosplaying as Phillip Rivers to an extent. How he's throwing that ball, it just looked painful.
You've also seen Rush, though. So, I mean, not in a couple of years.
So you're in no rush to start Cooper Rush?
Personally, no. I'm not in any rush.
Yeah, no rush.
I don't think it's going to be a good game either way. I mean, the Steelers are undefeated. They just pulled it out against the Ravens, and I don't see them having a problem dispatching the Cowboys.
And it's a Dallas Cowboys defense that did their best impression of a preseason game last week against the Eagles.
They're basically a JV team at this point.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be Big Ben just kind of floating them around, getting some touchdowns, just padding some stats. It's going to be stat padding week.
I mean, when you have as many weapons as he does, I mean, Deontay Johnson has emerged, Chase Claypool's emerged, Juju Smith-Schuster's back online.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of weapons to just throw a party.
Yeah, we have to get back to that question again, though. That always comes up in these obvious trash fire games that are going to happen. Do the starters stay in? I mean, the Chiefs did it, but are the Steelers the same type to do that type of thing?
That's the question.
Only concern.
It's in Texas, so it's going to be played inside. So weather's not going to be an issue. So yeah, I mean, I could totally see Big Ben staying in there for the whole game, just because there's not any weather concerns. Mm-hmm. Their line's been playing pretty well. And the Cowboys don't have much of a pass rush. I mean, they have Aldon Smith, but outside of that, D-Law has been nowhere to be found. So,
yeah, and then there's the people who got banished from Dallas who are no longer playing on defense.
Of course, you don't have to worry about them because they're just not there.
Yeah, so interesting situation. Definitely, but definitely starting Big Ben, Pat Mahomes. Even though, logic would say if you were those teams, you'd bench them once you're up by like 20 points. You would not risk like some freak accident happening. But they're probably going to keep him in. I would lean towards that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's your bonus. It's not extra money, it's stats.
Yeah. After last week, I just don't trust myself to put Mahomes lower due to being pulled early.
Okay, so for ranks 6 through 10, we have Deshaun Watson at the Jaguars, Tom Brady versus New Orleans, Matt Ryan versus Denver, Kyler Murray versus the very angry Miami Dolphins, and rounding out our list, we have 10, Aaron Rodgers at San Francisco. So the biggest ones I have questions about there that you might want to answer, Nick, mainly because you're a Packers fan, is Rodgers at San Francisco. How concerned or excited are you?
I mean, it's hard to be excited, especially considering the last 2 times we played them, they were not pretty. That's putting it mildly. But San Francisco is pretty banged up in their defense. Nicky Bosa's not there, so that's going to be
they can't get a
potential game changer. However, we're not exactly healthy either, and by we, I just mean the Packers. The running game, we're down to Dexter Williams and Tyler Irvin. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch a non-existent running game.
Well, you might be surprised.
But that just means that Aaron Rodgers is, if they're going to have any chance of winning, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to throw a party. He's going to have to throw it all over the field. And despite what a lot of people say out there, he does have weapons. He might not have the traditional weapons in the sense that he's got the 1, 2, 3 wide receivers, but
and Tanyan's
he's got some good tight ends.
Like Tanyan's showing up.
Tanyan is showing up when his number's called.
And Adams, you just no.
Adams is gross.
3 touchdowns.
Adams is downright gross.
Yeah.
So, given Aaron Rodgers' natural talent, I think top 10 is probably right at all times. I wonder about the game plan. I wonder about San Francisco's defense because their depth is ridiculously good. Even if they're not starting their, first or second string guys, they're still good very deep down. And so if it's anything like last year, it's going to be tough it's going to be a long night for Rodgers. But it's not.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference is no Nicky Bosa.
Well, also everyone's been destroyed, and
yeah,
Jordan Reed's the healthiest tight end right now. That's going to be starting at this point. And he only has a chance of starting.
No Garoppolo, no Kittle,
and they just cut Dante.
They cut Dante Pettis.
Dante Pettis.
So that's.
And I don't know if Deebo Samuel's coming. I don't know if Deebo Samuel's coming back yet.
I haven't seen anything on that yet.
So that's something to be aware of. I definitely think that the Packers have a good chance at winning this game just by virtue of the fact that everyone on the 49ers has been destroyed by injury.
They're hurting for sure. I think it might come down to a coaching matchup, in which case
I think
Shanahan has the edge, I think, over Matt LaFleur.
So I guess that's I think that's a bit on that. But what do you think about the Dolphins and Kyler Murray? There's been some putrid NFC West matchups with the Dolphins. Weirdly enough, you have the favored Rams get spanked. That was painful.
The Niners get spanked.
Yeah, there were 2 benchable quarterback performances in each of those matchups. Jimmy Garoppolo actually pulled it off. He succeeded. He managed to get benched.
I mean, to be fair, he was coming off of injury.
Jared Goff, with the way he was playing, deserved to be benched. And the question is, will Kyler Murray join the sad party?
Here's the difference. I don't know if it's going to make enough of a difference because you're right. Something this year about Miami and the NFC West, they just seem to have their number. Kyler Murray is so elusive that I think he can get out of that pass attack, that pass defense, and just go find some plays. Whereas you've got Goff and you've got a hobbled Jimmy Garoppolo, who were not able to get out of the pocket. They weren't able to find those open plays. The kid, Kyler Murray, can run. And so I like that matchup this week a lot.
Yeah, it's just the turnovers, I think, killed both of those teams in both those matchups. And because the Rams were able to run and they were able to pass.
They were. One final note that I just want to mention on Kyler Murray, at least in our league, we have touchdowns slightly different than most people for PPR.
Yeah, this is in one of our leagues. We just have slightly more points for touchdowns, so he's padded.
If I'm not mistaken, Kyler Murray's floor right now is 29 points.
So he's been around mid-20s.
So look for him to have another 30-point game, probably.
Potentially. I don't know. I could see it being mid-20s. Like it's
at the lowest.
That's where I'd estimate.
You think his floor is mid-20s?
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's where I'd say. Well, I wouldn't say that's his floor. I'd say it'd be around 20's the floor. I would say.
Okay.
I'd say I could see him getting, like, realistically, if I had to expect something, I would say a mid to high 20s this week in points.
So moving on to 11 through 20, we're going to put Matthew Stafford at the Vikings, Derek Carr at the Chargers, Ryan Tannehill versus the Bears, Lamar Jackson at the Colts, Drew Brees at the Buccaneers, Phillip Rivers versus the Ravens, Nick Foles versus the Titans, Drew Lock at the Falcons, Kirk Cousins at the Lions, and finally Cam Newton at the Jets. So Grant, a couple of questions for you here. I'm interested in what you think about Derek Carr at the Chargers, Lamar Jackson at the Colts, and Drew Lock at the Falcons. Particularly, what do you think about Lamar Jackson? He's been an interesting quarterback this year, considering he's coming off of an MVP candidate or MVP award.
Season. Yeah,
MVP season.
Well, when it comes to really fantastic defenses, you generally see Lamar Jackson come back to earth a little bit, and the Steelers pummeled him last time. And I think the Colts are going to really put some heat on him. That's one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL, arguably the best defense in the NFL. Some people will make that argument. But the thing is, you can make that argument. I know you're questioning it, but the Steelers right now are probably number 1, I think, in the defenses, but they're close. The Colts are really good with what they're doing out there. Darius Leonard, fantastic. It's going to be a doozy, in my opinion, for him. This is starting a rough series of weeks for Lamar Jackson, and it's going to be tough to put together anything resembling his usual stat lines.
Yeah.
Expect an interception.
At least one. One. I agree there. Moving on to Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, he's been a lot better this year. Quietly pretty good last year. And he's one of those people don't really talk about for whatever reason. Not very flashy.
And that's mostly why I wanted to talk to you about him, because I don't watch Raiders games.
Yeah, I've been looking at it. He's been doing some nice deep ball throws. The connection with Nelson Aguilar, even though he's doing his drops again, which are frustrating. He's got a bad catch percentage. I think that the Chargers will overcome in that they will find a way possibly to lose that game and essentially help Derek Carr out. They made Drew Lock look fantastic last week. There's just something about that team where they're just like, oh crap, we're winning. We can't do this. We got to stop. And I had a roommate who was a Chargers fan, and he basically said that it was one of the most frustrating experiences ever. Clearly a playoff caliber team, but it's almost like Dan Quinn's over there.
They have so much talent. I mean,
it's frustrating. They should be winning these games, and something happens, and they allow these other teams that they're beating down to climb back, and they essentially create a perfect environment for garbage time, but then they don't let it stay garbage time. It ends up being a comeback victory.
So moving slightly off topic, is it time for Anthony Lynn to go? Is he on the hot seat?
That's a tough one. In that, I don't know. I mean, that's a really tough one. I mean, because you can't argue because it's one of those things. You get rid of him. Is he one of the factors in Justin Herbert's development? So imagine because you can see so Darnold he was developing well, and then Gase came in and ruined his entire career. So you always have to worry about a Gase somehow finding some kind of incriminating photo about your owner and just surfacing up on your team. I mean, picture that, Justin Herbert, so full of hope, so full of life, and then Gase comes in and ruins it for him. I mean, that's a tough one. Even Jets fans say he's horrible. But so I think Anthony Lynn's put together some respectable games. The Chargers were doing this before he got here, is my point. I don't think he's the problem necessarily. There's some kind of mentality. So that's something to look at. I think give him one more year. If it tanks this bad next year, then yikes. Yeah, like
Then
I
you
think
think
the
it's time
Chargers,
to-
the Chargers do still, in my eyes, have a chance of sneaking in very, very late into the playoffs if they can tighten it up, but it's not likely.
No, I don't think it's likely. I mean, it's certainly possible with that extra
That
wild card
spot,
up for grabs.
It makes it interesting.
But with the way they lose those close games, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't
to
see
be
them
honest.
making it, but it's just they have hope. That's the thing. Like, if you get rid of a coach who's spurring development, because we've learned this season's been the season of learning that the grass is not always greener.
No.
Just look at
certainly
Jason
not.
Garrett.
Certainly not.
Mike McCarthy's he's doing his best to remind everyone why he got fired from Green Bay. I know.
Don't get me started on that because I have my opinions on that.
Yeah, I am. Well, it is what it is. But yeah, I definitely do think. I definitely think Anthony Lynn deserves another year.
So you don't think he's on the hot seat?
And especially when you have a rookie quarterback who's developing very well in the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's potential there. It's not like you can see a dead end pretty clearly.
I think they struck gold with Herbert, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I really do. I think
Whoever did that,
that kid's future
kudos.
is bright.
So speaking of the AFC West, Drew Lock.
Drew Lock.
At the Falcons.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is the latest recipient of the bounty of points the Chargers decided to give up in the second half. And the question is, does he keep it rolling against the Falcons? Do you think he can do it?
I think he can. I mean, I don't know if he'll pull away with the victory, but if you look at his fantasy points this year, he hasn't been elite. But
Except in the last half against the Chargers.
Sure. And again, there you're looking at, he was able to come away with the win, which is huge. But you also want to look at not just wins and losses with fantasy, of course.
Yeah.
But how many? What's his stat line going to be? And he's quietly been putting up fairly respectable numbers this year. So I think a mid-tier ranking is pretty appropriate for this guy.
It's just, average. And it should be better against the Falcons. I just don't trust it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to last week when we looked at Carolina and Atlanta. Atlanta pulled out the victory on that one, which I was surprised about. So it's going to be interesting to see what Atlanta team shows up this week.
It's post-Quinn.
It is post-Quinn, and that's been a bright future for them so far with post-Quinn.
They look like an actual NFL team after he left. I wonder what he was doing, and be a fly on the wall.
So I could see it going either way. But as far as Drew Lock goes, personally, I see him having a good game.
Yeah, okay, I agree. I think it's not gonna be an amazing game.
No, it'll be respectable.
He's not gonna. I would be shocked if he broke 25 points.
I would too, and that's why he's not in our top 10.
Yeah, and Nick Foles, by the way, Nick Foles versus Titans.
Oh yeah, I don't trust Nicky Foles yet.
And he had one of his better games against the Saints.
He did.
Does he keep it rolling? Maybe.
I doubt it.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
It's that's a tough one. I don't know. He's one of those quarterbacks, like everyone in the bottom half. It's a little questionable when it comes to a start. Something like you could always strike gold. This could be the second coming of Saint Nick. I won't say the other one. That's YouTube. But this could be the second coming. He could surface and do something amazing. He has it in him. I just don't think it is this week. I think it'll be respectable. And this is a Titans defense that's clearly vulnerable to the pass. You had Joe
Absolutely.
Burrow. Joe Burrow
really
blew it
is.
up last week.
Boy, how about that game? I was shocked. I really was.
I was pretty shocked. And the Titans, they've always been a team that I feel can beat any team in the NFL in a weird way. They're very competitive.
But can lose to any team?
But they can also lose to any team.
Yeah.
At any moment, they can crash down to earth. And it's one of those teams where I feel like I feel like that was a game where they really underestimated the Bengals. They're like, oh, this
Probably.
is a layup.
They
dude.
probably did.
Just check it out. Look what they're doing over there. And then the Bengals surprised them, punched them right in the mouth. And those are always cool to see. I think that the Titans probably got overconfident on that, and that's why that happened. Okay, so for our bottom quarterbacks, 21 through 28, the bin.
The garbage bin.
Home for some of our quarterbacks. It smells bad. It's scary. There's limited light.
But it's up.
Yeah, it's home. You find a way. And it's like Ratatouille. You get past the gag reflex. I mean, if you're starting one of these, this tier is, if you're starting these, you're scared. You're scared. Halloween's over, but you're still scared. So 21, Tua at Arizona, scary. Teddy Bridgewater at Kansas City, shocker alert, it scares me. You have 23, Kyle Allen versus the New York Giants. 24, Nick Mullins at versus the Packers. Scary. Mike Glennon, oof. Versus the Texans. Daniel Jones at Washington. The footballs attack. 27, Sam Darnold returns. He returns in a game against the Patriots. He's having shoulder pains. There's ghosts. That's scary. Ben DiNucci or Cooper Rush versus the Steelers in a game that's the equivalent of, it's like, oh, hey, I dropped my wedding ring inside of this disposal. It's, it's just, it feels uncomfortable. It's scary. There's pain. You just don't want to do it. Ben DiNucci, Cooper Rush. Why? No. Honestly, I wouldn't, you have to question it. Like, everything that led up to that point. Like, those guys, they just know. It's just like, okay, I'm going to get beaten for an entire football game. So, what do you think about these candidates? Do you think Tua can escape?
You know, I was not super impressed with Tua in his debut. But I think he's got some pretty great raw talent. And so while he's still learning the league, I expect him to not be great. So our garbage bin, yeah, it's appropriate.
Sneaky good Arizona defense.
Yeah, it is a sneaky good Arizona defense. So I certainly could see him in the next couple of weeks climbing his way out as he gets more familiar with the league and has more reps under his belt. My only question on this list is, and again, it really doesn't matter because you're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I might put Sam Darnold at number 28. I really might. Simply because it's AFC East versus AFC East. Bill Belichick knows this division inside and out. Yeah. And the Jets are just, they're straight up bad. They might be worse than the Cowboys. In fact, I would argue they are.
I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure the Cowboys. So the Cowboys haven't scored a touchdown in 2 games. It's been field goal central.
It's been all field goals.
I think the Jets might have scored more.
Well, it's hard not to.
But that's the thing. Like, I think that the Jets have more of an opportunity to potentially score a point. Like, score points. Like, I think that the Steelers game, there's a legit.
So they're what, 32nd in passing yards?
That's the Jets.
Yeah.
You expect that. I think the Jets have a chance of scoring points. I don't think the Cowboys have a chance. In my opinion, I think that's going to be such a painful game. I don't know if it's prime time. The NFL probably will try and force us to watch it in prime time.
Probably, because what's the deal with the NFL forcing us to watch NFC East primetime games this year?
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty common. I've seen.
Flex them.
I don't understand.
No one needs to see that. That's like one of those. It's one of those things. Like, it's like if you labeled that game a practice, like a scrimmage, no one would notice.
Look, I want to turn on a primetime game because it's a primetime game. It's labeled to be good.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch NFC East. I just don't.
I would rather watch Mike Glennon and the Jags play the Texans in prime time.
Yeah, mostly
Then
because it's not the
Darnold
NFC
and the
East.
Pats and DiNucci or Rush and the Steelers.
They're both gross games.
And it's
They're
just
just both
painful.
gross games.
With Darnold, that hurts to watch a little bit. It's a career getting wasted.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I 100% agree.
Rush.
100% agree.
Rush might, like, the thing is, I would be scared if I was any of those. Rush will have, like, he's going to get sacked a lot.
Especially if they decide to go with Rush. I think this ranking is appropriate because Cooper Rush is fresh off the practice squad, hasn't played for them in 2 to 3 years, I think. I think 2017 was when he was last with them. Might have been 2016.
You think they can turn down that?
Yeah, it's probably, if they go with Rush, it's going to be a bad game.
I don't know how they can extinguish the flame that is the Nooch. He's got that sick sidearm throw that goes absolutely nowhere. If you're tanking,
I wouldn't just because he's already played a game, and why bench him and start another fresh guy? I wouldn't, but a report I saw earlier said they're strongly considering it. And that's why we've put Rush on this list as an option.
The question is, are they considering playing football?
Well, I mean, yes.
What I've seen hasn't resembled it. The defense actually, they struggled. There was a little bit of struggles before.
Oh, the defense is horrible.
Well, they struggled a little bit. There was an attempt at playing defense.
There was
something that might have resembled. And they were intercepting Carson Wentz. But
Is that hard, though? Come on.
Carson Wentz, I think Carson Wentz is proud enough to call those completions.
I don't think it's hard to pick off Wentz.
Yeah. But, yeah, that pretty much rounds out our list. You don't want to go into the scary area down there unless you know something.
Unless
really
the rest
fantastic.
of your lineup is so good that you'll beat your opponent no matter what.
Yeah. It's like that. Like, why take the risk?
Right.
That's why they're down there. Proud of Kirk Cousins. He's made it to number 19, even though his coach doesn't trust him. I don't trust him. But yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.